Hi and welcome to this week's video. So this week I've got myself 5 faulty Nintendo Switches. So I've been buying these over the past couple of weeks and I decided instead of making a couple of separate videos, I'll throw them all together and make one. So there's lots of issues with these, so chips, connections, cleaning, we'll go through it all in a bit. So they all ranged in price from £30 to £40. I always look for the cheapest bargains on eBay. And they all ranged in faults. Most of them saying not turning on, some of them saying other issues, so we'll go through them all in a little bit. So starting with switch number 1, so to cut down on time, I'll eliminate all the openings up. You don't need to see me taking out millions of screws. So the back cover off this one. Then all the screws out of the back of the heat shield, and then we'll pop the heat shield off. Disconnect the batteries first thing, and then we'll have a little look around. So first thing I noticed, it was really dirty, so we'll give it a good clean. Now I'm just going to pop in a non-working battery. Turn it on, see what happens. So it comes onto the Nintendo logo. Taking a little bit longer than normal, and then we get a little error message. So an error message there normally means a faulty M92 chip. So I'm going to get my multimeter out, put it into continuity mode, and then we'll take some readings. One prong on ground, the other on either side of the chip. If it beeps both sides, it normally means it's a bad M92 chip. So this one I have a little short on one of them, so I do think the M92 is bad. Just checking the fuse, that's okay. So I'm just going to take out the fan connector. So a bit of isopropyl on this helps the sticky come off a little bit. Then we'll take the card reader out, take all the screws out, and then we'll take the motherboard out. As you can see, a little bit dirty. So straight under the microscope, we put a little bit of flux around the M92 chip. We heat 440 degrees C. Airflow around about 80%. Just move it around and it should only take a minute or two for the solder to melt, and then we'll be able to lift the chip off. Very carefully lift up, not sideways, as you don't want to be knocking any of the small chips around, and then we'll pop a new chip back on. Hardest part is making sure we line up nice and perfect. Made it look harder than it was, but finally done. Then we'll give it a quick clean with isopropyl alcohol. Both sides, because sometimes the flux goes on either side. And then I'm going to quickly just get my multimeter back out and then check these pins at the top. And I'm not getting any shorts on these caps, so hopefully that means the M92 works fine. So we plug the battery back in, we'll flip it around and give it a quick test. Then realise the battery is nice and flat, so we'll get my non-working battery back in, plug that in, turn it on, and we start up again, and then we need to hope we don't get any error messages. So there's the switch logo, and then there we get it started up. And it seems to be working as you'd expect. So hopefully, obviously more tests need to be done, but hopefully we got our first fixed Nintendo Switch out of the 5. So on to number 2, and I opened this up and straight away I could see at the top that the ribbon cable connector that attached to the screen to the motherboard isn't properly pushed in. So I'm trying to push it in, but it's just going either side, so that normally means we've got a couple of bent pins. So we get the motherboard out and give it a check. So I'll pop it under the microscope and we just angle it around, and then straight away you can see there is a lot of bent pins in there. So normally I don't even try and bend them back, but when there's that amount, I wouldn't even attempt to it. So it's just going to be a swap over. So we'll apply a little bit of flux. I always remove the NAND chip because sometimes this can pull and disconnect the connector from the board. So we heat from below, again 440C, keep moving it around. And then the solder melts so we can lift the old connector off. Then a little bit of flux back on. Bit of fresh solder on the pads. Then we'll place the new connector back on, do our best to line it up correctly, apply the heat from underneath again, and then just make sure it's in position. Sometimes it automatically pulls itself into position, other times I just need to position it and hold it down a little bit. Hold it down for a couple of seconds till the solder solidifies, and then we're done. So quickly with isopropyl again, making sure we get them right in. Sometimes the catches can get a little bit stiff, so you just need to add a little bit more isopropyl, bend it up and down a little bit, loosen up, and then this will make it work fine. We'll pop the motherboard back into its housing. Make sure we put the NAND chip back on, otherwise it won't boot on. Put the card reader back on, so if it works, the touch will work. Plug a known working battery into the housing. Flip it over, press the on button, and we get a Nintendo logo, which is good. We want to get it fully booting. Yes, we do. We get to the home screen, and there we have it. Another Nintendo Switch, fully loaded with games, and all at the moment working fine. Once again, a lot more tests needed to be done, but I'm pretty happy that this one's going to be working fine. So I just plugged the battery back in that came with the housing. And then put the charger in. So I get a charge symbol in the corner, so it is showing that it's charging. I'll just flip it over to make sure that it's charging on both sides. Which it is, so we'll leave this to charge for a couple of hours. So on to switch number 3. So this one turns on, but when you attach Joy-Cons, it doesn't go any further. So we've definitely got a Joy-Con issue, one of the rails. So as we look on the sides, you can see someone's absolutely butchered the sides. They've rounded off every screw. So instead of messing about, I'm just going to get a grinder out and I'm going to cut right across each screw to create a nice straight line. So we're able to get a flathead screwdriver in and remove these old screws. Because it was already quite scuffed and scratched, there was no point in trying to save it. So just get a flathead screwdriver, nice and slow, push it in, and then unscrew the 3 screws. So we take all them out, it goes nice and loose, so we just need to remove the back cover now, so all the screws off there. Once again, all the screws out the heatsink, we'll take that out, peel the back off, and then we'll get working on this side. So we just disconnect the connection, pull out the ribbon cable, and then we'll take out the old one. So obviously it's not getting reused, but we'll have a look to see what the issue was. And as we look at the connection, you can see a lot of corrosion, so this is why the Joy-Con wasn't registering. So it can be fixed, so we can keep this bottom bit. We just obviously need to change the end rail. But we've got a complete whole new end rail, which we're going to attach. So we just slide that in, make the connection, and then we'll pop the 3 screws back into the side. And then we put it back together. We turn it on, we pop the Joy-Cons in down the side. And then there we go to the red Nintendo Switch logo, which shows switch number 3 is now working. So we can put it all back together, rear housing, heat shield all back on, all the screws back in. give it a nice little clean, and then quickly go through the setup, and then we have fully working Nintendo Switch. And now we move on to switch number 4. So this one's a little bit rough, bit of damage to it, but we'll take the back off again. Heat shield comes off. So we'll have a look at the back, and then straight away you can see a little bit of damage on the ribbon cable. So we disconnect the battery, take all the internals out, take the motherboard out, and a close look shows a big split on the ribbon cable. So this is something I could possibly fix in the future, but not currently. So I'm just going to pop it into a known working housing, and then we'll see what happens from there. Motherboard back in, all connections made, turn it on, and then we get the logo, and then we wait to see whether it boots up fully, which it does. And that was an absolutely totally easy fix. All we had was a ribbon cable damaged, and again, more tests need doing, but it looks like we currently have 4 out of 4 fixed. And now switch number 5, the final switch. So this one, I gave it a couple of tests. It's showing a voltage and ampage, which I've always had issues with, and I've always struggled with this. No shorts around the M92 or any of the other chips. I tried it in a non-working housing, it wasn't turning on. One of the descriptions did say they thought one of the consoles might have had the wrong NAND, so because of this, I'm going to give up on that one. And that's it. So 5 faulty switches, 4 switches fully fixed. I've done tests on all of them, they all work, they all dock. Joy-Cons work on all of them, touchscreen works on them. Admittedly I had to change a couple of screens, had to get a few little extra bits on them. So when you go in to try and say how much things cost, you've got to incorporate all the likes of that. But it's nice to know that we've saved 4 switches from the scrap heap. I've left the other one to one side in case there's something that I can do further down the line with regards to the NAND. But I'm happy overall with the repair that we've managed to complete. So thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.